Hello TYBSc students. This is our continuation of the previous lecture about the ectoparasites, and in the previous lecture we have already seen what are the different types of ectoparasites. Then we have seen what are their subtypes. Then we have continued with the ectoparasites associated with the domestic animals and their role in pathogen transmission. Now within this table itself we have seen there are number of different types of ectoparasites. They are in two types, where one is invertebrate parasites. In that we have seen the in platyhelminths also, flukes also there are some parasites. Then annelida parasites are there. In arthropods, crustaceans are there, which may infect fishes or livestock. Crustaceans basically infects fishes, annelida infects livestock, leeches, that is one of the example. And then after that we have seen some dipterans like mosquitoes, which suck the blood. It is also ectoparasite, but at the same time they transfer some diseases also. Okay, so we have seen different types of ectoparasites. Some vertebrate, in that we have seen we have talked about the bat, that is a vampire bat which sucks the blood. Okay, so now today we will see some kind of adaptations related with their feeding habitats and related with the reproduction of these parasites. Now if we talk about adaptations for feeding, okay, we have seen the one of the important adaptation in mosquitoes, that generally mosquitoes don't bite. In a normal condition we always say अरे मच्छर ने काट लिया, but actually they don't bite, they actually pierce. They have a pierce and sucking mouth parts. They don't have a mandibles to bite. Okay, so generally mosquitoes don't bite. So what parasites make, what kind of food they take in if you can remember, in endoparasites we have seen that there is an adaptation, that their integument or integument is used for absorption of food, because they live within the food, endoparasites. But if you talk about the ectoparasites, they don't live within the food, they have to search for the food, and basically food will be in the form of two types, either there will be blood or there will be tissues. Okay, so two food sources from the host, blood or tissues. Now if we talk about only blood, then they have to penetrate through the skin and go up to the capillary level, okay, to suck the blood from the host. So few examples, as you can see, lice feeding with long mouth part piercing down to the dermal capillaries. So they pierce through the skin up to the dermal capillaries and they start sucking the blood. Similar example of mosquito also, they pierce to, see, remember if you have observed the mosquito, when it sits, it will take some time for piercing and then it starts sucking the blood. If a mosquito sits and you just try to kill him or try to give or do something that it will go away, then at that time it will not able to suck your blood. Remember, so ectoparasites that feed on blood must possess some structure that allows them to penetrate the epidermis and reach blood vessels. Similar kind of adaptation can be observed in some of the ticks also, some of the mites also, some fleas also. So they do piercing. This is the first thing that you can observe. Then fleas have some mouth part again for piercing. So this is one. Then mites have piercing mouth part. Okay, but all are piercing? No, not necessary. Even in lice, we just now have seen the lice piercing. Now there are some louse which can chew. Okay, so so even though it is so called as a chewing lice, can feed on blood, so they also feed on blood, but before that they chew out the skin and open up the dermal area, then there will be capillaries open up and they start feeding on the blood. Sometimes they chew and eat, but basically the chewing is to make the area from where the blood can be taken up. Okay, so this is the biggest difference between the ectoparasite and the endoparasite. If you can if you can remember about the endoparasite, their biggest adaptation, again, what kind of food they are absorbing. Some of the parasites like protozoans, they absorb the blood, okay, or they secrete some digestive enzymes which start digesting the material nearby it. For example, in malaria, that protozoan, if it is present in RBC, it start digesting the hemoglobin present within the RBC. If you talk about some multicellular animals, some helminths or flukes, they will start through the mouth itself, they will start secreting some enzymes, digesting whatever it is there nearby and then absorb it. If they are in intestine, they already have a semi-digested food, so through integument itself they will start absorbing the food. So that was the adaptation of the endoparasites. But in ectoparasites, no such adaptations. Their outer integument is somewhat thick. If you can remember, especially if you try to remember that, especially the girls and even the boys, if there are lice in your head, your mother will try to comb it, and once they are on the comb, you try to kill it. So when you try to kill it, there is a some kind of noise, that tick noise will be there. So it shows that their outer covering, or you can say thick cuticle is present, and that cuticle is not for absorption, but it protects them from external environment. Okay, so they will have the piercing, and some of them will have the chewing mouth part for either sucking, taking up the blood, or eating of that skin part. Okay, now this was about the food. Second thing is how they will go away. Now food is present, they don't have to forage or move from one host to another for food. Ample amount of food is present, they are sitting on the food, even though they are not living within the food, but they are sitting on the food. So anytime they can take whatever they want whenever they feel hungry. But second thing is very important about the reproduction and how to disperse from one host to another. This is very important. There are two types, we will see that part. So dispersal is, first of all, what is dispersal? It's a process by which the individual parasites move from one geographical location to another geographical location. Now they move because this is ectoparasite, so they have to move. This movement based upon the adaptations what they have. If you take example, now there are two types of adaptation. First of all, this movement can be result from direct activity by free living stages, but typically results in dispersion on the order of meters. Means they don't go away from kilometers. They will just move from one place to another nearby the area. Second, the movement can also occur passively, as the parasite is carried by wind or water current or by its host, and may result in dispersal. Now two types, remember, adaptation for dispersal within the ectoparasites are of two types. One is called as direct and second is called as passive or indirect. Okay, now in active dispersal or active movement, adult stages does not occur, generally does not occur for endoparasites because they are in the host, but in ectoparasites such as fleas, flea can fly, leave a host frequently and disperse for short distance, but host is the main agent for dispersal, remember. So they can fly, fleas, very small. Flea was responsible for one of the disease that is called as what we say, it is through the rat. Okay, plague. Fleas was responsible for the plague. Now flea were present on the surface of rats. Okay, and whenever any person come in contact with these rats, dead rats, at that time the flea will fly from rat towards the person's skin. They were so small, but they can disperse, but they cannot disperse for a longer area because they cannot handle the current of wind or like that, because they are very small. Okay, so this is kind of a direct transfer. Second, again, example of the mosquito. Mosquito can disperse from one area to another, okay, from one person to another, because they have their own wings. A sandfly can see, they also have their wings, they can fly from one area to another. So this kind of transfer is called as active dispersal. So they get transferred from one area to another. Okay. Second is the passive dispersal. Passive dispersal, the person who is infected by, or for example lice can't fly. So a person who is having lice in his hair, so what will happen, it will just eggs and lice itself, the whole body or otherwise eggs, it will be dispersed through the host to host. So it will be present on the shoulders of the host or within the hair, and when any other person come in contact with that person through some other means, for example small children, basically they play along, and at that time there is a possibility, if one child is having this lice in his head, hairs, then it will get transferred into another student or another child. Okay, so that is a simple transfer. This is called as a passive transfer. Okay, it's not active, not by lice itself, but it's a passive transfer from one area to another. Similarly, any other ectoparasite which is present on the skin, and when some other person's skin come in touch with that person's skin, for example on hand, okay, so there will be handshake, so there is a transfer. Okay, that is called a passive transfer. Sometimes through the wind or water also. So a person is sitting in front of one person, there is a wind blowing, and through one person these lice or eggs that can get transferred nearby area. Okay, so these are the two types of transfer that may happen. There is now how a reproduction takes place. Now remember, in endoparasites we have seen that there are some endoparasites which where you have difference in the male and female, but whereas some of the endoparasites that can produce the eggs, they don't require the female. Okay, they can produce on their own. Similarly, in ectoparasite, most of the time male and females are separate. Okay, they have to come together, but very few of the ectoparasites are there which require which can produce the eggs. Okay, so as you can see here also, and what they do, they lay eggs, okay, on the hair or whatever host body of the host, and dispersal may takes place. So as you can see, lice can disperse actively from host to host if there is a direct contact, and through the clothes. Okay, and then adults parasites dispersed by the host, they are infecting, but there are some exceptions also in the ectoparasites. Okay, eggs. And second thing, some of the ectoparasite may produce cyst. Basically cyst formation is observed in endoparasites, okay, but very few ectoparasites may have cysts. So eggs or cysts produced by the adult parasite are dispersed by the host movement. So basically dispersal, if we talk about, will be related with the host movement. Okay, so this was all about the ectoparasites and endoparasites. Okay, so in ectoparasites, endoparasites, we have seen the different types of ectoparasites and their adaptations. We have seen different types of endoparasites and their adaptations. Okay, basically morphological adaptation. So in ectoparasites we have seen the morphological adaptations related with what? External adaptation. So their skin is thick integuments, and they have mouth parts. Basically two types, either chewing mouth parts are there or piercing mouth part are there. Maximum number of ectoparasites have a piercing mouth part, whereas in endoparasites we don't see such kind of morphological changes. Their adaptation is totally different, and ectoparasite adaptations are totally different. Okay, so and one more thing, if you take an example of leech. Now leech will also have some adaptation that is related to the anticoagulant activity. When they are sucking the blood, at that time blood don't get clot. Reason is their saliva, that saliva doesn't allow blood to clot, so it inhibits the clotting of the blood. Anticoagulant activity is there for the within the leech. Similar example I have given you about the ectoparasite, that is the vampire bat. So vampire bat also doesn't allow the blood to clot because in their saliva they have some anticoagulant activity. Okay, so so we are finishing our second chapter related with the ectoparasite and endoparasite. In next lectures we will start with the another third chapter of the parasitology. Thank you.